Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
And a good morning after a beautiful weekend. What is going on? It's like we should be the destination for everybody who wants to be assured of bright blue skies and gorgeous sunny days. It's not going to rain the rest of the week.
That's what it says.
Where'd you hear that?
Weather Channel.
The Weather Channel? Well, I want you to know that I actually was sitting in PNC Park. God, I hate those corporate park names. I stopped for a second because I thought, oh, damn, what corporation is it? Oh, I hate it. Excuse me. Thank you very much. I mean, really, remember when... This came up in conversation yesterday. Remember when you could, if you were a sports fan, name the ballparks? You would know them. They had names that were not corporate. And I would be stunned if 1 in 500 sports fans could accurately name where every Major League Baseball team plays their home games, what the name of the stadium is. I would, because they change, you know. I hate it. There, and I was in such a good mood. So anyway, as I was saying to Jess, so I was sitting in PNC Park Saturday, beautiful day. Unfortunately, the outcome was not great, but it started to feel a little chilly all of a sudden. I thought, geez, how could it be cold? I'm sure it's 70, perfect temperatures. So I did look at my little app on my iPhone from what did you just say, the Weather Channel? Yes, it's the Weather Channel app. Mm-hmm. And you know what it said? Pittsburgh, current temp, 40 degrees. And then under it says, feels like 40 degrees. And then it said in even smaller print, updated 2 hours ago. And I thought, yeah, I don't think so, Weather Channel. So if the Weather Channel says it's going to rain all week, I am not one to listen to them. I recall once Tom Sokolowski, who usually is with us on Thursdays, saying that there's a part of the New York Times that he just loves. It appears in Monday's paper. It was in today, it being Monday. It's called Metropolitan Diary. And what it is people, anybody, you could too, you send in something you overheard on the street, something that happened to you, something that gives a feel for New York City. In today's Metropolitan Diary, there's some really great things. There's a wild poem written by somebody who's obviously leaving New York after loving it for many years, who feels it's lost its soul because, as he puts it, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but let's face it, New York, it wasn't all good. Someone stole my car once, and you made a hero out of Bernie Goetz, and you let the Dodgers leave, and the Giants, and the Giants, and the Jets, but I forgave you. You killed John Lennon. I said I forgave you, but in the bottom of my heart, I knew. It goes on and on with some very sort of, unless you're a New Yorker, you don't get the references. And then he starts freaking out about how now there's a Target in Harlem and a Kmart in the Village, and he's had it. I didn't come here for ice cream or cafe latte or bike lanes, New York. You've lost your soul. I lost mine too, I know. You've changed and I can't be true to you. So that's one of the things in the Metropolitan Diary. It's a big, long thing. But the next two tickled me, and I want to share them with you in hopes that they might tickle you because, you know, nothing nicer than passing on a giggle or a appreciation. These aren't hysterical, but they're... Here's an overheard thing. A guy named Michael Foley was watching on, he was watching on the set of the finale of ABC's Revenge. And this is in I don't know if they're shooting in New York, but it's supposed to be New York. I think they're not shooting in New York. He's on the Universal Studios back lot in California. But it's supposed to be New York. And he hears the assistant director, a guy named Johnny Haddad, call to the 130 extras that are standing around in the background that are supposed to be people on a street in New York. And here's the directorial order from the Revenge assistant director. People! You're in New York. You're on your phones. You're walking fast. You're unhappy. Now, so, I mean, that's a little silly. So then all 130 people are on their phones walking fast and looking unhappy? I would think half of them maybe could be, but that is funny. And I suppose a sort of typical sense of what a New York sidewalk would look like and what the population would appear to be. Okay, here's my next one. Sorry for sniffing in your ear. It's allergy season. That's my excuse today. You know, when I'm sniffing in your ear in November, I have another excuse. Now, this one I think is hysterical. When I first started reading it, I thought, what a jerk. You mean this woman sent this in to tell all of New York what a wonderful person she is. But then it became clear, well, you'll hear. This is sent in by Claudia Greisbach Martucci. That's a moniker. She says, when I heard, "Somebody help me," from an old blind man on the corner of 24th and 8th at a sidewalk detour, I did not hesitate to link arms with him. I led him through the maze of the construction walkway while he released whispering thank yous, thank you, thank you. I thought our journey ended when the maze brought us back onto 25th Street. Okay, now we're all set, I patted his back. 27! I have to go to 27th Street. Now, My train at Penn was in 20 minutes. And I've seen snails on beaches move with greater acceleration than this guy. But morality overcame rationality. Okay, I said, 27th Street it is. As our journey continued, people started to notice the unusual couple. We arrived at 27th Street. Here we are, my friend, I said less enthusiastically. Fifth Avenue, he said. And here's what she said her parting line to him was. Listen, buddy, we agreed on 27th Street, and I have a train to catch. So much for being a Girl Scout. I continued alone to 28th Street, and behind me I heard him holler, "Somebody help me!" That's a great New York story. There's a great New York story! Okay, so those are just two. Wanted to share with you. Oh, God, how disgusting. I'm not one to usually rave about commercials, but I saw one yesterday, and I'm sure if you haven't seen it yet, you will be seeing it, because it is a local television commercial for a new entity in town. And that is the entity created when the state of Pennsylvania said to Highmark, "Yes, indeedy, you go right ahead and you buy West Penn, Allegheny." And so this new entity, I believe, is called Allegheny Health Systems. And this is our only chance, to have a competitor in the marketplace that might keep UPMC from what? Getting a big head. So, obviously, they quickly turned around and created this commercial, which is a commercial intended simply to announce to Pittsburgh that here we are, and there's something new in Pittsburgh. Well, what I want to tell you about this ad that's so unbelievable is that it relies, as so many ads do, when they're Pittsburgh-based, on the beautiful Pittsburgh skyline and downtown and that, just as we all know, far be it from us to, pat our own back too much, but it is a beautiful city. And it's a kind of rolling shot. It's a moving shot. And as I said, I only saw it once, and I didn't know I should be paying better attention to it until toward the end. But it starts, I believe, the camera carries you under one of the bridges. I guess it'd be the Fort Pitt Bridge. I'm not sure. And then it just sort of like zeroes in on this glorious downtown. And at the center of the shot is the Highmark building. Fifth Avenue Place, right? Is what it used to be called. Now it's got Highmark on top of it. And the shot sort of keeps moving and widening, and you keep thinking, oh my God, how can I be looking at this? It's so pretty, and they're talking about Pittsburgh, and you cannot. They managed to do this beautiful moving shot of what we all know and love to see and can't get enough of, this glorious Pittsburgh skyline. They managed to do it, and somehow UPMC, that biggest building in the skyline, does not show up. Why would they want UPMC in there and they couldn't have it? It's not like they airbrushed it out. They managed it through the careful kind of view that the camera allowed. And it appears as if Highmark is the tallest building. And Highmark is the center of the Pittsburgh universe. It is, as a traveling shot goes, real exemplary job. And given what the purpose of it is, just wonderful. If Jeffrey Romoff were watching TV when I was and he saw that spot, he had to have had an apoplectic attack. And that thought alone made my day. But so keep your eye out for it. It's such a beautiful thing. And there we are. And I suppose some people won't even notice. Hey, wait, something appears to be missing, because every time I see our skyline, there's that big black phallus sticking up with UPMC on the top of it. And it ain't there. And you know what? I think things look prettier. So just keep your eyes peeled for that. Dave writes, Bernie Goetz. Yes, I did mention Bernie Goetz. He says, Bernie Goetz or Bernie Carrick? Goetz was the guy who shot a bunch of punks on the train in New York in 1984. Bernie Carrick was the corrupt police chief and Giuliani's buddy that Bush tried to tap as the first Homeland Security boss, and who I think is he still in prison? I think I remember hearing he got out. He's in a halfway house or something. Okay, good. All your facts are absolutely correct. No, I think the guy who wrote that screed, Angry at New York, truly meant Bernie Goetz, meant Bernie Goetz. And his complaint was, he said, you made a hero out of Bernie Goetz. And what you're forgetting, Dave, is that the average New Yorker, when Bernie Goetz killed those kids who he thought were menacing, they got behind him. Bernie Goetz was considered a hero. It was somewhat like, the stand your ground kind of crap going on now. He was seen as a white guy who just about had enough of being scared to death by, scary-looking black kids. I think. That's my memory of it. And Goetz, I'm not sure what happened in his trial. I can't remember how many died, how many were wounded, but he had said he felt threatened. I don't think that the kids he shot had overtly done anything threatening. And so it brought up all the racial stuff. He felt threatened. Why? Because he's a white guy in a car and there's these scary-looking black guys. Is that what it was? Brings up Trayvon Martin and all that. I think Bernie Goetz, as I recall, was thought to be, yeah, that's what a lot of New Yorkers said. Yeah, I'm glad somebody finally said, I ain't taking this. I'm not being intimidated. Bang, 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 I think. So that's this guy, obviously. His memory is, hey, New York, you made a hero out of Bernie Goetz. That's my memory. And as we know, my memory is shot full of holes. Oh, speaking of guns, as you know, the NRA, are they packing up yet? They're out of Houston, I would think. USA Today had an interesting little sidebar about what goes on at the NRA convention. The things that get reported on the news are, Sarah Palin's speech, Ted Cruz's speech, all of these speeches saying that they ain't gonna get back down. In fact, there's more of us than ever, and we're blah, 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 blah. But the USA Today said, most of what goes on there is people just wander around through the unbelievable acreage of displays. The NRA convention had 9 acres. 9 acres at the convention center there. Wow. 9 acres of exhibits of guns, scopes, grips, holsters, targets, magazines, cabinets, safes, antiques, clothing, anything you could want. So that's where most of the people who attend the NRA, that's where they, that's what they love, looking at all this wondrous stuff. So here's some of what was on sale. human scale targets, of course. I mean, if you got these guns and you like shooting, you don't want to shoot at some, what? A tin can or a bullseye? No, you want to shoot at a terrorist. So they've got life-size terrorist models that you can kill. They've got aliens you can kill. They got zombies you can kill. Okay? And the wonderful thing about these human-scale targets is they can take thousands of hits before you need another one. Okay? So, let's see what else. Oh, but guess what the bestseller is? Okay, is it terrorists? Is it Nazis? Is it aliens? Is it zombie kangaroos? What, or clowns? They have clowns, too. Clowns. Hands down, clowns. There's a quote here from some guy who owns this company with all the life-size targets, and he said, the bestseller, probably the clown. People really seem to hate clowns. So they want to, isn't that, I love that. So that most people choose to blow away Bozo or Clarabelle rather than Osama bin Laden. Let's see what else. Oh, a group called Flashbang Holsters had a bra that they were selling with a concealed holster. And T-shirt vendors were hawking shirts that said things like Ted Nugent for president and deport Piers Morgan. God almighty. I'll tell you what. I'm going to take me a break, and we'll come back in a minute. It's a definite cornucopia kind of show. Little of this, little of that. So if you didn't like this first third, hang on. Things are changing immediately after this.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Give the gift of beauty and youth this Mother's Day. Join us Saturday, May 11th for a day of rejuvenation, skincare, and fun at the Sewickley Med Spa. Purchase one microdermabrasion and Mom gets a free microdermabrasion. Log on to SewickleyMedSpa.com or call 412-259-8628 for details. Sewickley Med Spa is conveniently located in downtown Sewickley at 435 Broad Street. Happy Mother's Day from the Sewickley Med Spa.
Go to BergBargains.com for great deals on gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. Like us on Facebook or sign up for our weekly email updates for your chance to win a family 4-pack of tickets to Kennywood. BergBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BergBargains.com.
Packers.
Vikings.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we make a real difference in the building blocks of life. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly so do our communities. Real change won't happen without you.
Live United.
So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okie doke. I think I recall saying last week at some point that I just mentioned Guantanamo and said I don't want to talk about it. It's just so upsetting, so unbelievably ridiculous, and I think that was generally sums up what I said. But I do want to bring it up a little bit now, and I came across this, and it just shows the unbelievable. We got the sequester going because we're supposed to be saving money. Well, if you look at the places where we don't even consider saving money, where we're just flushing money down the toilet, Guantanamo is definitely one of those things. Okay. To keep one alleged terrorist at Guantanamo, You know how much it costs you, the American taxpayer? One alleged terrorist for 1 year at Guantanamo. $900,000. What? $900,000. Now, there are 166 people currently held at Guantanamo, so you do the math. Now, if you look at the most scary, secure, super maximum prison in the United States, the cost of housing a prisoner there would be at the top of the range, $70,000. So it would be a savings of, let's say, that'd be $830,000 per prisoner. The average cost of keeping someone in a federal prison for a year is $30,000. Now, let us return. $900,000 per prisoner at Guantanamo. And you'll recall that when the president talked of closing it, he was also talking about, we'll take the ones we had and we'll move them here. We've got, for God's sakes, if there's one thing this country has practically on every corner these days, it's a prison. And we've got these maximum security prisons. I never comprehended what the problem is in housing these guys in our prisons here. I remember when the subject first came up, and there was some prison in Illinois that said, yeah, we could take them, no problem, here. We'd love to have them. Bring them over here. And the congressman from that district and the people screamed and yelled, we don't want these terrorists here. They're in prison! What? I don't even understand it. I don't understand. It's the Republicans that are behind this. You can't have them here. I don't get it. There's a fear that if they're on our soil, they could take advantage of our constitutional freedoms. Well, maybe that is true. But then again, we've had plenty of them here who have taken advantage of our constitutional freedoms. And guess what? They're all in jail. So this is another, if you can't get a Republican to recognize the absurdity of keeping Guantanamo open, you could maybe get to a Republican on the money wasted. About $850,000, give or take a few tens of thousands, per terrorist. A year. Good God. And here we're cutting meals on wheels. So what? We can keep these people, many of whom, they've never had a trial. It is conceivable, is it not, that some of them were sort of snatched up and didn't really do much of anything. Guantanamo is such a blot, what we're doing there, on who we say we are. And I mean, there's a lot of mythology that comforts Americans about who we are. But a lot of that mythology has some basis in fact. This is a grand experiment of a nation in many, many, many ways. I love it. I'm proud of it in many ways. But this is an outrage. Among the current people at Guantanamo, 9 have been charged with crimes or convicted. 24 are considered maybe eligible for prosecution. What does that mean, eligible for? We're holding people who we're not intending to prosecute? Isn't there some kind of a human rights problem there? 86 have been cleared for transfer or release. So, what's keeping you? They can't find anywhere to go, probably. And 47 are considered too dangerous for release, but are not facing prosecution. How is that possible? So we, by fiat, said, this guy is too dangerous to be held anywhere but right here, and we do not intend to prosecute him. What? I thought we had a system of justice that was part of what we're proud of. That everyone is entitled to face their accusers, have a trial by a jury of their peers. And of course, now you've got what? I don't know how many of them, lots of them, being force-fed. I think about 24, 25 people are being force-fed, which is also against some kind of human rights convention. Others on hunger strike. What are we doing there? You know, when an aggrieved entity, person and or nation, with reason to be aggrieved, 9/11, ends up behaving in a way which makes them not who they like to think of themselves as being, if it turns them into torturers and a nation that tortures, a nation that holds people and has no intention of prosecuting them, holds them, force feeds them, refuses them any kind of, it is beyond me. Blah, 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 blah. So, here. Why is it so expensive? I know, you're asking. So why would it cost $900,000 to hold someone there, whereas if you just took them 100 miles to the north and plopped them in some maximum security facility in Florida, let's say, you could save $30,000 a person. One of the reasons is, look, Guantanamo, for those of you who might have forgotten the geography, is on an island in the Caribbean, an island that, well, we call Cuba. It's all very odd, I know it. Cuba's a nation that we are not on good terms with. But, won't go into the historical reasons for it, the U.S. actually has a base on this island of Cuba. It's Guantanamo. How'd that happen? I'm sure the Cubans love it. So there we are. We're not particularly welcome there. They're not welcome here, but we got a base on their island. It's 45 square miles of that island belongs to the U.S. Navy. And because we really aren't even on speaking terms with Cuba, absolutely everything that goes to Guantanamo, that Guantanamo needs, has to be ferried in, airlifted in, and that makes things extraordinarily expensive there. That's the big reason. And even though Obama said he was going to close the dang thing, he's really, I think this is, again, one of these things that this obstreperous Congress will not allow. And there's a lot of Democrats who are against it, too. They don't want these terrorists in the United States behind 20,000 locked keys. It can't be a security reason that they're worried. So I don't know. It's beyond me. Okay, so now I ain't ever going to say another word about Guantanamo. I'm sick of it. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Let's see what else. Oh, here's something else, somewhat like this. Okay, so now the terrorist of the hour is, of course, this Dzhokhar. And the Boston attack was in the news. Is still in the news, of course. But I just want to say that re-enter the picture the uncle. The uncle who we first heard from maybe the day after the attack when they were, well, they weren't identified yet. After they were identified, and he was beside himself, and he called them losers, and he told them to turn themselves in and beg forgiveness and blah, 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 blah. But this guy was so well-spoken and so clearly, he just had every reaction he had seemed the correct one. You know? The correct human reaction. Well, he's back, and he's doing it again. I love this guy. I love him. Ruslan Tsarny, the guy from Maryland. He went up to Boston. He's the only obviously responsible member of this family. He's an uncle who behaves like a person should behave. All his emotions, his anger, his compassion, this guy is a man of character. Let's just put it that way. So, he's the one who claimed the body. He doesn't like this nephew. Wasn't even on good terms with the nephew. But his body's lying there, and somebody has to claim it. So for the family, he claims the body. Now, what blows me away is how he cannot find a funeral home that will take the body. Takes him a long time. He finds a funeral home that will take the body. You know, I think, people, here's what he says. Here's the uncle's quote. And by the way, the funeral home is being picketed. The funeral home has been on the poor owner has been on the receiving end of God knows how many threats and this and that. The funeral home guy is simply doing what somebody has to do. And the uncle says this: a dead person needs to be buried. That's what tradition requires. That's what religion requires. That's what morals require. He is correct. A person has to be buried. There is no cemetery that will accept him. This is the kind, to me, I'm sorry, this is people behaving badly. It's not getting back at the body. The body's dead. This uncle is trying to do the right thing by his tradition and his religion, which is the body must rest underground. All bodies. And everybody is saying, I've heard this before, NIMBY, not in my backyard. And that usually has to do with putting up a power plant or, some kind of facility you don't want. And now it has to do with planting a body. Well, I don't know. To me, again, this is people behaving badly. Badly. And I to what end? I'm not sure. Now, when John Wilkes Booth, right, shoots the president, an extremely popular president of the United States, and he gets caught, and he gets convicted, and he gets hung, did we then say, I ain't going to bury him? We won't bury him anywhere. He's buried. We've buried the worst of the worst. We've buried killers. What is this? Ask me, I just think it's people acting badly. Petty and badly. And silly. It's silly. It's just stupid silly. Well, here's another good bit. This is a good bit. No, stop. I'm sorry. This is. So while I'm talking about what America likes to think it is and how we are this grand experiment of a nation, just a heads up. And I mean, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if the show's good. It sounds like it will be. There is, and you've maybe seen it advertised, there is a 4-part series on the Constitution of the United States that starts Tuesday night at 9 on PBS stations. QED is, in fact, carrying it. I always have to look because for some reason our local PBS station often does not carry the thing that PBS is putting out that you want to see, but they are. And this sounds like it might be interesting, and in part because of who the host is. The host is a guy that a lot of people really like. His name is Peter Sagal. And Peter Sagal is this very smart, very funny, very witty producer and host of the show that airs on NPR on Saturdays, Wait, Don't Tell Me. It's a quiz show based on the news, and it's a howl. It is a wonderful, wonderful show. So here is Peter Sagal doing this, what is, a heavy-duty, serious subject called Constitution USA. And there was an interesting tidbit in a story that the New York Times did on it. Peter Sagal, it turns out, ran in the Boston Marathon this year, and he ran as a guide for a blind runner. So he ran tethered to a blind runner in the Boston Marathon, and they finished 4 minutes before the bomb went off. So those of you who are fans of Wait, Don't Tell Me, I would think you'd want to check out this PBS series. Apparently, it does not deal with the Second Amendment. They figured the Second Amendment is so incendiary, we're not even going to touch it. We won't touch it. So it deals with constitutional principles. And I believe this first one's supposed to deal with what states' rights, federalism, and states' rights, and how that plays out in our lives. And so I think they're going to make it very real and what the Constitution says. And Americans don't know their Constitution, which is why you end up with Guantanamos and why you end up with a lot of the craziness we have and the misunderstandings we have of what it means to proudly stand for what our founding fathers created. We invoke their name all the time, their names, and, most of us don't know anything. Okay, let's get a break in here, and we'll come back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
It's warming up outside, so get to Little's for all your spring needs. Little's has everything for men, women, and children to stay in style for this upcoming hot summer. Lots of great colors from Dansko, New Balance, Steve Madden, and much, much more. Don't forget to come visit this season's colorful handbag selection as well. Little Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Well, if you're like me, you're just loving this weather because you get out into your garden. And I have, in years past, told you that my favorite garden spot is on the north side, right there on the north side, on Brighton Road, 1901 Brighton. It's a hop, skip, and a jump for just about any place around. It's called the Urban Gardener, and it has everything you could want, but often unusual things that you don't see anywhere else. We're talking perennials, vines, trees, bushes, shrubs, annuals, all kinds of stuff. They have garden art and beautiful accessories and fun stuff that you will, again, not find anywhere else. And they'll do consultation with you. I mean, they do design consultation. They'll even do it for you. You know, they'll maintain a garden for you if you want to. So please check them out. The Urban Gardener, 1901 Brighton Road. Check them out online at urbangardenerpgh.com. And when you go and ooh and ah and buy stuff, please tell them, Lynn Cullen, I want my 5% discount. Lynn Cullen, I'll get you 5% off, okay? Don't forget that part. That's important.
Pittsburgh City Paper is seeking 10 local artists to design their own street box for our second annual public art project to be featured throughout the city of Pittsburgh. Go to www.pghcitypaper.com and click on the Art Box link for more details. The Pittsburgh City Paper Art Box Project, brought to you by the Westmoreland and Hill House Association.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
All right, continuing our cornucopial tour. The Post-Gazette. Oh, by the way, and I didn't even mention this. I don't know why, but I was shocked. The Post-Gazette on Sunday endorsed Wagner. I don't know why. I was assuming they would endorse Bill Peduto. But they endorse the same old, same old, same old. I guess people are really fearful of what somebody who is a bit of an outsider, not part of the in crowd, what they would do. As mayor, we don't do that kind of thing around here, apparently. Which to my mind is all the more reason why we should do it. Shake things up. Anyway, the Post-Gazette also had a story that picked up on the statistic that I shared with you last week that had come out, which is that more people kill themselves in the United States every year than are killed by somebody else. Just get this in your head. Twice as many people kill themselves in the United States every year than are murdered. Twice as many. For every person who's a homicide victim, there are 2 suicides. And then you add to that the fact of a lot of suicide attempts are not successful. They figure that for every successful suicide, there is probably about 5 that were not successful. I think that was the number that they gave. Which would mean if everybody who tried to kill themselves in the United States every year was successful, we would have 1 million dead people at their own hand every year. That, guys, is huge. I mean, if you start putting numbers on it, the last year they have absolute numbers is 2010. So 38,364 people in the United States killed themselves that year. And as I said, that was twice the number of people who were killed by somebody else. And it was 5,000 more people than were killed in car accidents. And there is a big upswing in men between the ages of 35 and 64 killing themselves. There's been a 28% increase in the last decade. As we know, suicide in the military has reached frightening proportions, so much so that more active duty service members died by their own hand than died in combat. Think about that. 120 more committed suicide last year than died in the war in Afghanistan. Okay, so we got a problem here. Also, let's look at, okay, more men killed themselves than women, and what is the means of the suicide? The means is a gun. Firearms account for more than half of all suicides. Then you look at the 5 states with the highest per capita suicide rate, and there are all these big western states that love their guns. Number 1, Wyoming. Number 2, Alaska. Number 3, Montana. Number 4, Nevada. And number 5, New Mexico. You look at the states where people are least likely to kill themselves, and lo and behold, they're in blue states. Red staters kill themselves, blue staters do not. The 5 least likely places for an American to kill himself would be Massachusetts, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, and D.C. Now, I don't know what you make of that, but you can make something of it. And the fact of the matter is, because we pay no attention to this, one of the reasons is the papers don't report suicides very often. When someone commits suicide, it just shows up as an obituary in the paper, and there's not a story done about it. When somebody gets killed, there's a story done about it. But stop, and so we start to think, oh my God, everybody's getting shot. Oh, I'm going to get shot. No, your biggest danger to yourself is you and the gun you keep in your house. So then in an impulsive moment, you have the means to do something that in 5 hours you would not have done, but because the gun's there, bang-o, you're dead. Another great reason, ladies and gentlemen, to always keep a gun in your home so that some despondent soul in your orbit will be able to kill themselves with no problem while they are in a moment or a period of despondency. Insane. One of you, and I won't identify you, sent me this because I did mention this statistic the other day and how there's this uptick with men in an age range that 35 to 64 that has been, generally speaking, not the age range where you see the suicides. You see the suicides in young people and in old people, but not there in that middle crowd. The fact that there's this huge uptick in the middle crowd has got people's attention. And one of you emailed me saying, the last bit of your show, I must have talked about this on Friday, last bit of your show touched a nerve with me. I'm a 43-year-old white unemployed male. This is exactly the kind of person who's vulnerable. And yes, I've thought about suicide, he writes. And yes, life seems to have a pretty bleak outlook. I am fortunate to have a wonderful wife, and I am getting help. But wow, it's really tough. Wow. Well, I just want to say to you, you keep getting that help. That's another reason that there's a big uptick with men in that age range, that a lot of men don't get help. I guess it's considered unmanly. So you're already exhibiting some really good survival skills in that you're getting help, you recognize where you are, and you just need to keep plugging on. Believe me. Jeez. Interesting piece. Business section, New York Times, yesterday. A very distinguished group of law professors and federal judges. I mean, I looked at the list of the people who did this. I mean, this is heavy duty. Included, oh, of course, now I can't hear. Lee Epstein, he's a law professor at USC. William Landis, an economist at the University of Chicago. Judge Richard Posner, federal appeals court judge in Chicago, and was also a professor at U of Chicago, and is a conservative. Posner, he's a brilliant man, conservative. So I just want you to know that this study is not, some liberal tainted study. This is what they decided to do. There's all this anecdotal stuff floating around in the judicial community that the current Supreme Court is the most conservative court we've ever had. And some people say, well, I mean, you can't. Well, okay. These guys said, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to look conservative liberal. We'll just say one of the things that some people would allege would be a conservative court would be a pro-business court. So what they did was go back to 1940 something. I think 1946. Right after World War II. And they looked at every single decision that had been made by the United States Supreme Court in which a business entity was a plaintiff or a defendant. Okay, so business cases. They looked at every one, and they looked at what happened in the case, did the business side win or lose, and what justices went on which side. And they came up with a list so they could see of all the justices who have served on the Supreme Court since 1946, they were able to rank by name what their positions were on cases involving business. Now, you end up with a top 10 list of justices who were the 10 most justices willing to give the win to business. And guess what? Every single one of the current Republicans on the court, Republican-appointed justices, that those five, we get all these 5-4 decisions, those five, we can name them, God knows, we wish we didn't have to, Thomas, Scalia, Roberts, Alito, and Kennedy. Those five all are in the top 10 of pro-business justices in the last 65 years. 68, 70 years almost. 70 years. So, when people think this is probably the most pro-business court we've ever had, they're right. They are right. As a matter of fact, the two that hold the number 1 spot and the number 3 spot on that list are the 2 justices appointed by George W. Bush. Sam Alito is number 1, and John Roberts, the Chief Justice, is number 3. We're talking about, in that period, 36 justices served. So when you look, Roberts is number 2. Alito and Roberts, they're 1 and 2. They are the 2 most pro-business justices that have served in our lifetime on the Supreme Court. And I hate to tell you this, they're both young. They're going to be there a long, long time. And everyone who watches their decisions will say that since this court has been there, business has won case after case after case. It's now almost impossible to bring a class action suit against a company because of the Roberts Court. And it says right here, the upshot essentially is that businesses are free to run their operations without fear of liability for the harm they cause to consumers, employees, and people injured by their products. The court has made it virtually impossible now to hold a company liable. One of the cases, and we don't pay attention to these cases. These aren't the sexy cases like, the social issue cases, gay marriage or abortion cases. One of the cases, 5-4. They're all 5-4s. 5-4. These 5 damn Republicans, they ruled, get this, that people harmed by unsafe generic drugs, which we're all pushed to, right? Try not to get a generic drug when you're filling a prescription, right? People harmed by unsafe generic drugs may not sue the manufacturer under state law for failing to issue warnings about the risks associated with the drug. The court ruled that 1.5 million female employees of Walmart did not have enough in common to pursue a class action suit against Walmart contending sex discrimination. They didn't have enough in common. They're women, they all work for the same business, and they're all getting paid less than the men. But that's not enough for this business-friendly court. You can hardly do class actions anymore since this court's been around, and you can hardly win a liability case anymore, just so as you know. Here is the dean of the University of California School of Law. The Roberts Court is the most pro-business court since the mid-'30s. I think this helps understand it far more than looking at it with traditional liberal and conservative labels. It's a very depressing article to read. It's a very depressing article. And so I thought I'd leave you with that bit of depression. I didn't intend to. I just looked up and saw, uh-oh, time's up. Thank you very much for spending any or all of this time with me. And I'll be back tomorrow, be joined by my sister. I've got a lot of interesting, more social issue-y stuff to talk about that I'd like to talk about. She's often very smart about that kind of thing. So I think we'll have some fun tomorrow. Hope you can join me. Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.